Okay, so we're going to start Stitch very much the same way we started Mario. We're going to go here to our light box and go to our Dynamesh spheres. Remember, there's a bunch of different ones, Dynamesh 128, Dynamesh 32. I'm going to go with Dynamesh 64. It's just a good starting sphere in terms of number of points here. First thing I want to do is turn off perspective. I want to make sure I'm looking at this straight on from the front because it's a much more accurate look at what we're doing here. Now, his head is very spherical. Now we're going to do the whole body, but we're going to start with just the head. His head is very spherical, but it's not exactly a sphere. So I want to come down here with my move brush, make it nice and big. Actually, before I even do anything, let's just go ahead and scale this whole head down a little bit so that my brush relatively to the head will be a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to kind of flatten the top a little bit. I'm going to kind of widen the bottom part a little bit here. So I'm just kind of making it a little bit more like it's like this head shape here. It's got the sides aren't completely round. They have a little bit of a straight up and down going on here. I'm going to kind of just widen that. I'm going to go to my move tool and just widen it in the red. Make sure you scale it in the red. That way it goes left and right. Okay. Now here's the thing. From the side view, right, you can tell that some of the things I've been doing have not gone all the way through the back. So you want to make sure you take a look at this and you adjust this so that it kind of makes a little bit more sense. Okay. Now what I want to do is if I hit, I'm going to just take a look at how this looks next to this picture here. And I want to make sure that the size is relatively okay. And I think it is. I think it'll be okay. I'm just trying to get a feel for where the eyes are going to go and where everything else is going to go. I'm going to come down here with my damn standard brush. And I'm just going to, this is roughly, very roughly where the mouth is going to be, right? So it's going to kind of be nice and open like this, right? So I'm just like making sure that when all is said and done, I have room for everything, okay? So the eye sockets here, he's got like these big, you know, light blue parts about the eye. I'm going to go to my side view. You can see here, this rolls back, and that's not the case for his actual face. So I want to make sure I bring that forward a little bit so that it's not quite so pushed back from the head. Because again, you know, from the front, the shape might look okay, but the head itself needs to be able to contain all this, right? So I'm going to kind of bring all this stuff around here, and here is going to be the little eye, the little light blue eye area. The nose obviously is going to go right here, right? Okay, so this is a start. Now what I want to do is I want to start giving myself a little bit more of an indication of where the stuff is. So I'm going to hold down the control key to go to my mask pen. I'm going to lightly just mask out the area where I want the eye. These are not the eye sockets. This is just the kind of the light blue around the eye here. I'm going to invert that and go to my move brush, okay? And I'm going to push this in a little bit. Now you can push this away from the camera like this. And the way to do that is to get your move brush nice and big, hold down Alt, which is the opposite. But for the move brush, what the Alt does is it pushes the clay either away from the camera or toward the camera. So if I hold down Alt and tap and drag from right to left, I'm pushing away from the camera a little bit. Now I'll just hold down the shift and smooth that a little bit there. So again, now if I clear my mask, you can see nothing big here. I just kind of give myself a little indication of where that edge is going to be. Same idea here for the mouth, right? So the mouth is going to be an opening in the face. So I need to actually have this be pushed back. So I'm going to go to my side view, hold down Control. I'm going to change my mask pen here to the mask lasso. And I want to come in here and lasso out where I think the smile is going to be, like right around there. Make sure you do it from the side. If you do it from the front, it'll go through the back. I only want this mask here. Okay, I'm going to hold down Control and tap to invert my mask. I'm going to go to my side view, go to my move tool, and just grab my little arrows here and just push this back. Okay, just going to bring this way back into the head like this. Okay, I'm going to hit Q to make that move tool go away, but I'm not done. I want to push this even further back, but this time I'm just going to do it with my clay build-up brush. The clay build-up brush, of course, builds up clay, but if you hold down Alt and then scrub it, right, you can kind of push that clay even further back into the head. Okay, let's Control, tap, and drag to clear our mask. Now, this is all messed up, but Dynamesh will remesh. I don't know if this resolution is going to keep things nice to us. Let's Control, tap, and drag a second time to kind of activate Dynamesh. You can see how it gets really blocky. So I'll hit Undo. And I'll come here to my resolution and tap on this little slider to kind of give myself the ability to type it in. I'm going to type in 128, okay, and then remesh, and now it keeps it pretty well. So because we scaled the head down, the resolution on the slider didn't actually have the same effect as it would have otherwise. So that's why it didn't kind of keep the same number of points, because when you have it scaled down, the resolution kind of changes in terms of how it works. I'm just going to get my little move brush here and just tweak this shape a little bit. Hit B for brush, P for pinch, and grab the pinch brush. I'm just going to do a little pinching, just click and drag, like, you know, to kind of tap and drag to kind of pinch that up a little bit there. Go back to my move brush. And by the way, when I say I'm going back to my brushes, you'll note that I'm not going over here and changing my brushes. I have hotkeys or shortcut keys built in, just so for the sake of these tutorials, you're not going to have to watch me go over and over and over again, okay? Now, that's the start, right? Now I'm just going to bring in a sphere for the nose. So let's come here to my subtool palette. I'm not going to, I could use the insert brush, but I'm just going to come here to my subtool palette and hit insert sphere 3D. It's very big, so I'm going to scale it down. Go to my side view here and pull this straight forward. Okay, scale it down a little bit more this way. Bring it forward this way. And from the front now, you have to remember this, because I inserted it, it does not inherit the fact that this had symmetry on. So hit X, turn symmetry on. Now with my move brush, right, I can kind of like shape this a little bit more. I'm going to go to my side view, bring this forward a little bit. And with my move brush, I want to kind of bring this nose up like this so it doesn't kind of round down quite so much. Okay. And get my dam standard brush here and just say, okay, where are the nostrils going to be? Right, they're going to be kind of in this little area right here. Right. Get my move tool, my move brush, I should say, and just tweak this a little bit. And this is just blocking the shape in. Right, we're going to, you know, we'll have a little more to work with in a minute, but I just want to kind of have this roughed in so that I can kind of get a feel for how the nose is going to look. Now I'm going to get my dam standard brush and hold down the Alt key and just kind of click and drag, and that's going to kind of like give myself a little ridge right here, and then I can just smooth it out a little bit. I just want to kind of give myself a little ridge. I can go back to my pinch brush and pinch that ridge a little bit more. Again, it's just going to kind of give the nose a little bit of a hard edge there. So you can kind of get a feel for this. I don't know exactly how the nose looks from the side, so I'm just going to have to eyeball it here, but this is going to be a little more of a pinchy nose down here and a wide nose up top here. Okay, a little smooth. All right, so now we have those two things blocked in. Next video, we'll block in the eyes and start thinking about the ears. All right, so with the eyes, we're going to, of course, start just by bringing in some spheres, but they're very flat, and it's very important that we kind of are clear about how you never sculpt on the eyes. We're just going to flatten them a little bit. So I'm going to come here to my Insert Primitive Brush, and I'm going to choose Sphere. I'm back on the face now, not the nose. Click and drag, just like that. Don't try and change the shape, just bring them out so they're perfectly spherical. I'm going to split unmask points, and now I'm going to go here to the eyes. I'm going to go to my side view, go to my Move tool, and while here, I'm just going to kind of like look at it from the front, and I'm just going to center it. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and hit my little orientation arrow, so now everything is kind of centered and up and down. And I'm going to flatten it a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to let the head do most of the work here. So I'm going to bring this in. Obviously, we're in the wrong spot. You have to kind of get that roughly in place. And something like this. And I can squash it down a little bit here and kind of move it in. The placement of the eyes is, I'm going to make it a little wider here. Now when I do this and things get weird, don't forget, come over here and turn on local sim. That way it'll keep it centered as you scale it up. Okay, so I'm going to kind of put it roughly like this. So if I go to solo mode, you can see basically I haven't sculpted, I've just kind of changed the proportions a little bit. Okay, and don't worry about how they're not exactly the right shape yet. That's going to be the actual eyelids that we make as we sculpt on the head here. Okay. So this is perfectly fine as just a kind of a place saver for where we are. Maybe I'll slide them down just a little bit. You can see how they're almost in line with the nose. So you want to bring them down. And that's kind of like something you need to do too. You need to kind of use the picture as a guide to where these things go in terms of the proportions and the overall placement of them. So just have to kind of make sure that the placement of these makes sense given where we see them in the picture. So I'm going to widen that a little bit here like this. Again, it's going to look a little bit weird until we get the eyelids on there, but I think eventually it'll start making sense. We'll hope. Now, oops, let's make sure I get my Move tool here. So now we need to block in the ears. And the ears are going to be used, we're going to use a sphere, but we're going to use a deformer on this sphere because you can see how they kind of like fold in on themselves here. So I'm just going to do one, and then we'll mirror it over. Okay, so I'm going to come here and turn off symmetry, hit X for a second. I'm going to go here to my Insert Primitive Brush, go to my sphere, and I go to my side view. It doesn't really matter which side you go on. I'm just going to drag out a sphere on one side. Okay, split it off. And again, this is a perfectly spherical object here. I'm going to hit my little Google Maps icon to center it. Now, I'm not going to hold down Alt this time. I'm just going to hit the orientation arrow. What that's going to do is actually going to reorient the sphere as well, so it's straight up and down. And what I need to do, obviously, is I need to make this taller, right? So this is going to be basically the ear itself. So I'm going to scale it up kind of like this. Go to my side view and scrunch it in like this, okay? I'm going to kind of widen it a little bit like this. So this is where I'm starting, okay? I'm going to start with kind of like this long, oblong, flattened surface, all right? Now, I need to do a few things. One, I need to taper the bottom a little bit. So I'm going to come here to my gear and choose taper. And I'm going to taper the bottom, I'm sorry, not the bottom, the top, sorry. Like something like this, okay? It's a little bit of a taper, all right? Now let's go to my gear again and hit accept. Now we're going to do something weird. We're going to bend this forward. So I'm going to look at this from the top view here, which is a strange thing to do. I'm going to look from the top view. I'm going to go to my gear, and I'm going to choose this very first option, bend arc. Not bend curve, which we've used before, but bend arc. This gives me this little box here. And what I want to do is I want to grab this green guy right here in the top, but make sure you do it from the top view. I'm going to grab the green one, make sure it's green, and as I pull, it's going to start rotating it. And as it gets past a certain rotation point, it's going to start widening, and that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to bring it in like this. I want to widen this way out like this. Okay, this looks ridiculous, I know. Okay, I'm going to widen it out kind of like this maybe. I'm going to go to my gear again, and hit accept. Now I'm going to scale this in from the side like this. Okay, so now I've scaled that in from the side so it's not quite so wide. I'm going to go to my side view and maybe scale it in a little bit this way as well. Now what I'm going to do is go to another deformer. I'm going to go here to twist. And now I'm going to grab this and twist it. You can see here as I twist that, we get this kind of folding going on here, right? And this is not a perfect version of his ear, but I think it's a pretty good starting point. Okay, now I'll go to my little gear again and hit accept. Now I'm going to try one more little thing. I'm going to go to my gear again and choose bend curve. So now I have a couple. I'm going to go to my little orange cone here and pull this out to give me one here in the middle. I'm going to bring this back this way. Okay, bring it like this. Maybe go to my little top orange dot here, and you can see we have other cones here. There's one here called scale, so I can kind of scale that in a little bit if I need to. Okay, I can come down here, grab this one, and there's another one for twist. So this orange one here, I can kind of twist this, right, however I see fit if I need to. Okay, and just bring it up like this. So again, you can kind of wrap this around more if you want to. I'm going to kind of stick with this. I kind of like the way this looks. I'm going to go here to my bottom node and scale that in. I want this to kind of, actually I might squeeze it in a little bit like this. Okay, like this. So this is going to be kind of my stitch ear. Hit OK, go my little gear, hit accept. I'm going to hold down Alt and move the pivot point to the bottom here. That way when I move this, it'll kind of go where I want it to go. I'm going to scale it, I'm sorry, rotate it back a little bit. And maybe kind of rotate it up a little bit here. Now, it's very, very thin here. So what I'm going to do is come here to my, close up my subtool palette, come down here to deformation, and there is a slider down here for inflate. I'm just going to do a slight inflate here so that the ear inflates a little bit. All right, and again, you can come in here with your move brush and you kind of adjust this shape if you want to, right? So whatever you think you got to do, you can certainly adjust it. But for me, this is kind of a nice little stitch ear that I kind of think looks good here. So I'm just going to kind of bring this up a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a point. Get my pinch brush, maybe do a little of that. So again, there's my little stitch ear, and I'm going to make this a little bit taller. Okay, something like that. Maybe kind of bring it from behind a little bit here. All right, and now it's going to come down here and hit mirror, and I'm going to merge it into one subtool, and there we go. I'll hit X to make sure symmetry's on now, so when I do any work to this, it'll work okay. I might need to kind of, adjust this, rotate it, do whatever you got to do. But I mean, it's a starting point for Stitch's ears, and we can kind of adjust them as we see fit. Okay, so something like this will get us started. The side view, maybe move it back a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right, so in this video, we're going to kind of try and work on the eyes a little bit and bring the teeth and the tongue in. So we're going to try a little bit of everything here. So I'm on the head, and I want to kind of bring in the eye sockets a little bit more, the shape. It's a little bit more of a football shape. So we can do a couple things. We can either build up the eye sockets or push them in. I'm going to try and build them up a little bit here. So I'm on the face. I'm going to go here on my clay build-up brush, and I'm just going to kind of lightly start building up the clay until I start seeing that shape come out where, you know, where I need it. So I'm just going to do the same thing down here, just lightly build this up. You can smooth it down if you need to, right? So we're just kind of building up clay very lightly just to kind of get the shape that we're going for. Okay, just trying to kind of build up basically what amounts to the eyelids around here, just to kind of get that almond shape here. I'm going to have B for brush, P for pinch. Let's go back to my pinch brush. I'm going to try and pinch in the corners a little bit here. And what you can also do is hold down Control, right, and go to your mask lasso. I'm going to move this with my move brush a little bit, but if you want to get a nice little point here, one of the things you can do is you can mask out the top part here and then get your move brush and kind of push that part up a little bit. Then invert that mask and kind of push that part down. So basically you can kind of get them to come to a nice edge there just by kind of forcing it to kind of play nice while you're moving it around. Okay, so here's where we are right now. Again, I'm going to do a light smooth. I don't want it to go away, but this is just kind of to get the eye sockets the way I want them. And I think we're getting pretty close to the eye socket shape here. Okay, so I want to push them in a little bit, can make them a little bit wider. And of course, this is the kind of thing you can kind of adjust this as much as you want. But let's go ahead and go with that. So now I'm going to bring in some stuff for the teeth. Again, really simple teeth, really simple tongue. I'm going to go back with my clay build-up brush with Alt pressed and just kind of push that mouth a little bit deeper. I'm going to have room for the tongue in there. Okay, and let's go ahead and bring in a tongue. So I'm going to go here to my insert primitive brush, sphere. Make sure my two little dots meet up here in the middle and just drag it out right about there. Split unmasked points, right? And now I can go to my little guy here. Go to my move tool. I'm going to squash it down in the green, right, in the vertical, and then bring it forward in the blue. Squash it out. Expand it here in the red, right? And it's going to move it forward a little bit more. Oops, sorry, move it forward in the blue. Go to I'm going to go to solo mode here. I'm going to push this back into the head. And again, we can adjust this as much as we want. We can go here to taper, for example. We can kind of bring this in just to give it a little bit of that little point to the end here. I can go to my side view here, go to my bend curve, give myself an extra little guy. So this is just like we did in the cheese spider. Just give myself a little bit of a shape to the tongue there. Except maybe, again, he's got that little indentation in there. So let's go here to damp standard and just lightly just kind of push in where that indentation is in the middle, like this. Now, I don't have symmetry turned on, and I should, so I'm turning it back on here. Let's go here to inflate and just kind of build that back up, get it nice and round. So there we go. So now we just have the standard tongue in there. Again, just blocking everything in right now. You can make this wider if you need to. He's got a pretty wide tongue, looks like, in there. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead and do that. All right, so again, it gets us started. Let's go back to the head here. It's going to push the upper mouth up inside there so that we have some more room. And now I'm going to bring that tongue down a little bit here, I think, like this. Okay, there we go. So now let's bring in the teeth. All this is still just blocking in the shapes, right? So teeth, even though you might think they're like cones or something like that, I'm still going to go with spheres. I want them to be very roundy and not terribly pointy. So I'm going to go here on the top. You can see here the eyes are kind of showing through. It doesn't matter. We're going to put the teeth here anyway. So I'm going to drag out these little guys. Once again, split unmasked points and go back to these guys. So let's go to my move tool. And again, I'm going to make them into teeth looking things. So with my move tool, I'm going to expand them. I'm going to scale them down a little bit here. Go to my gear. I'm going to go to taper, but I'm not going to go crazy with this. I just want to taper a tiny bit, kind of like this. And if I pull this top one out, I can widen it at the top as well, which is good. Hit accept. And let's just go here to bend curve. And I'm just going to give it a little bend like this. It's too thick for like a smooth curve, but that's kind of okay because I'm not looking for a smooth curve. I'm just looking for something like this, right? I can just kind of jam those into his upper jaw. Scale them down a little bit. Now again, they're scaling toward the center, so turn on local sim and it won't do that. Okay, just going to bring them up here like this. And I'm going to hold down Control and move my move tool. That's going to drag out a copy. If you remember from Mario's mustache, that's what we did. Just going to kind of bring these little guys. I go from underneath here and pull this forward so they come forward like this. All right, so now we have these little teeth here as well. And again, do whatever you think in terms of where they belong and how big to make them. I'm just going to scale down a little bit here, like this. Cool. Clear my mask. I'm just going to come down here and duplicate them. And now I'm going to hit X to turn symmetry off. Hit my Google Maps icon to put this right in the center and hold down Alt and reorient this. So now I can just hold down Shift and rotate this exactly 180 degrees, I'm sorry. So now these are basically the exact same teeth that I can then just put into the lower jaw, like so. Now I'm going to hold down Alt and move this over to the side and then hit X, turn symmetry back on. If I didn't move them off to the side, this when you turn symmetry being turned on while it's in the center of everything, it kind of just keeps everything centered. So I had to kind of basically trick it into thinking of this as something with a left and a right. So again, there we go. We have some little teeth in there. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the video here. The next video, we're going to start adding some color just so we can start visualizing Stitch. Then we'll start blocking out the body. Okay, so we're going to go through and just add some color to this so it starts feeling more like Stitch, right? So let's go up here to the head, and I'm going to sample this color. I'm going to come here to Zebra Paint. Go to the head, go here to MRGB, so I have material and color active. I'm just going to fill that color into the head. Let's go here to the ears for now and fill that, even though we have to do the inside in a minute. I'm going to fill that as well. And now for the nose, let's get that nose color. Come here and fill. And in terms of how I'm sampling this color, by the way, I'll be happy to show you. I'll show you how to bring the picture in and so forth. Okay, so the tongue, let's go ahead and grab the tongue color and fill that. And the teeth are a little off-white, I think. So they look actually pretty white, but I think of them as being a little bit off-white. Not perfectly white here. So I'm just going to kind of bring it up a little bit like that. Let's go here to the teeth and fill, and then fill. Eyes obviously are shiny, so let's go up here to black as our color, toy plastic as our material, and then hit fill object. Right, so now the eyes are shiny. They don't look shiny, but it's because the light is coming from a little bit above. So if I move it down a little bit, then you're going to start seeing the highlight on there. So just so you know, they are shiny. Okay, and now we're good to go. So now everything is roughly blocked in. I'm going to give this a little bit more paint here. So I'm going to go to the eyes, hit Control D a couple times just to give me a little bit of color. I'm not going crazy with this. But let's go here to my paintbrush. I just want to have a little bit of color here because it feels very, very lifeless. So I'm going to go here to a blue and go here to my fuzzy alpha, tone down my RGB intensity to like 30 something, turn off lazy mouse so I can paint quickly, and just do a little glazing down here like this, just to kind of give the eyes a little bit of something, just to make them pop a little bit. Okay, you always get the black and push that back, but I just want to have a little bit of something going on there. Now let's go here to the inside of the mouth and crank my intensity back up. And I'm going here to my alpha and maybe choose one with a little bit less of a fuzzy edge. So not perfectly sharp, but pretty fuzzy. Let's go here to the face. Again, none of this is going to matter. We're going to lose all this eventually, but I just want to kind of have something looking good. So I'm going to come here and turn on back face masking. Remember, what that does is it makes it so the paint doesn't go through to the other side if you get too close to a thin wall. Otherwise, it might kind of bleed through. So you turn on back face masking, the paint will stick only on the faces that you can see while you're painting them, basically. So just to give ourselves a little bit of that. Okay, there you go. So now we're getting somewhere. On let's go here and paint the inside of the ears again, just roughly, just to kind of get ourselves indication of how it feels. Again, everything's very low res right now, and I'm not really overly concerned. And we are going to at some point remesh everything, and when you do that, you lose a little bit of your paint. And I'll show you how you can kind of retain that paint. But at this point, sometimes you just need to see that you're on the track of what you're working toward, and then and then it feels a little bit better if you can get there. So I'm going to throw some paint in there. I'm going to kind of go to a somewhat darker version, and just kind of, oops, a little too much. And just come in here and just lightly just throw in a little bit of that purple as well, just to kind of offset it a little bit. All right, so we're getting somewhere with this. Now what I need to do is, I think this is a little bit too bright, so I'm going to kind of come in here with a little bit of a darkening element of that color. There you go. And then I'm going to come in with that same light color here and just give myself, oh geez, make sure I'm on the right thing. Give myself an indication of where that color is going to be as well. Okay, just a little bit of that, a little bit down here on the lower lip as well, looks like. So again, just something to kind of get it started. All right, so you can see here, it feels mildly stitch-like. We haven't done anything about the little bumps on the face. Let's go ahead and start with that. Let's come here with my standard brush. And this is still very low res. It's still Dynamesh, so it's still going to be ugly. It's just not going to kind of be a clean bit of sculpting here, but this is just blocking in a little bit of where these little guys are going to go. Go to damn standard here, maybe kind of carve in a little bit there, right? Go to my inflate brush, maybe build that up a touch, okay? Just to give ourselves something there. But let's talk about how we're going to start building up the body and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in this video, before we stop, is I'm going to insert basically 2 spheres for the torso. So I'm going to start with that. So let's come up here to let's go to my insert brush. I'm on the head right now, insert sphere, make sure symmetry is on. Go look at it from underneath and come right about here and just drag out a sphere like so. Okay, I'm going to use my move tool and push this up. Now remember, we have symmetry on. I'll hold down Alt, hit my orientation arrow. So you only want to move this up and down, not left and right. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of basically just bring this in like this, split unmasked points, and then grab this. And this is just basically the top part of him. This is his chest. Okay, I'll get my move brush maybe and just kind of build this up a little bit here, like this. Okay, now I'll go to my move tool, hold down Control, and drag out this. This is going to be his belly, so it's a lot bigger, it's a lot longer. Right? Maybe it's a little bit more rotated like this. Okay. Hit Q to get back to my move tool, and let's kind of widen the bottom out here a little bit, like this. Okay. Bring it back like so. So we just, again, just blocking in some shapes here. I'm going to hold down Control to clear my mask, and then hold down Control again, tap and drag to Dynamesh those together. Right. And now we have something that's a nice starting point for this. It's a little high res. I'm going to go here to my resolution and bring it back down to about 100. Now sometimes you need to adjust this mesh a little bit before it'll recalculate for you. So now if I Control tap and drag, now I only have 19,000, and it smooths out a lot better. And it's a lot more in keeping with what I was hoping for. I think that he's a little too long, so I'm going to bring this back up a little bit here. And I think we can kind of work with this. Now, again, it looks a little flat, so I'm going to go to my inflate brush and kind of give it some roundness here. And again, I'll remesh this a little bit by Control tapping and dragging just to kind of rebuild it. Just want to make sure that when you're using your move brush and you're kind of like pushing these things around, it's really easy for them to get like flat, planar surfaces, and we don't really want that. So kind of check it out and make sure that you keep things nice and round as you're working. Okay, so all right, so this is just our starting point here. It's a little too hourglassy, but that's okay. We're going to start with this. In the next video, we'll start blocking out the shapes of the limbs, and then we'll start seeing what we can do with the whole body. Okay, so we're going to be building the body here. I like to keep things very low res when I'm building it, and 17,000 is not real low res. So I'm going to bring this back down to 64, and then remesh this. Now it's at 6,000. I'm better with that, but eventually I'm going to make it even less. I want this to be able to be manipulated a lot more easily, and this is just very dense. So again, let's just knock this down. 32. Let's try 32, and then remesh. That's better. So I want it to be very blocky, because if I need to make changes to the overall shape, it'll be a lot easier to do when there are fewer points to move around. Okay, so let's go here and bring in some shapes for the arms and legs. So they're all just basically kind of like elongated and kind of round, like balloon animal type shapes. So let's go here to our primitives again, and I'm going to go here to, let's go to a capsule, and I want to go for the arm here. So now before I do the capsule, let's start with a sphere, because you need to have a shoulder. So I'm going to come here and drag out a sphere, and I'm just going to move this in roughly to about here. Okay, now I am going to split these off. I don't want to have everything fused together yet, because if we're going to pose the character, it's probably better not to fuse everything. It's just easier to kind of work on these things separately. So I'm going to split unmasked points. And this is basically the shoulder. And now I'm going to go to a capsule and bring in the arm here. So this is going to be the starting point for the arm. I'm going to hit my little Google Maps icon in the center of this and then bring this here to the arm. I'm going to scale this out a little bit, right about here. And now I need to kind of do some adjustments, right? I'm going to go to my gear, go to taper, and pull out to widen this. I'm going to pull in to narrow this a little bit. Okay, something like this. Go to my gear, hit accept. Now you can see here, there's no edges here at all, right? There's just nothing there. So let's clear my mask and then control tap and drag again. Actually, before I clear my mask, let's move this way over here so it's not connected to it. Control tap and drag again. So now they're all rebuilt, but they're not connected. That way, if I need to, I can kind of adjust this. I'm going to go to control, go to my mask lasso out the arms, then control tap to invert this. So now I can kind of bring this right closer to where the shoulder is and just kind of pop it in there. Okay, now again, I'm going to come in here and make some adjustments here. I'm going to go here to my inflate brush because he's got a little forearm like bulge going on here. Okay, but then it kind of narrows again. So I can get my move brush and pull this down a little bit to kind of like make a little narrowed wrist type area. And then this is the little forearm area. I'm going to go to my damp standard brush and kind of just carve in a little bit here where I think the little elbow bendy part is going to be. Okay, now I'm going to clear my mask. I am going to kind of increase my resolution a little bit now, something like 64 again, because it was a little too little. There you go. And now I can just kind of like lightly mesh these together. Go to my inflate brush and just shape this as best I can. Get my move brush and just shape this into what looks like a little arm. He's got kind of an interesting little setup here with these arms. I'm going to go to solo mode here because the little bicep area is actually a pretty small area. And then if I get my inflate brush here, his little forearms, right, get a little bit longer. Okay, so something like that for now is not a bad start. And again, do it the way you see fit. I'm just demonstrating the process here that I would do. Probably need to adjust this shape a little bit more, but I'm not going to get too much into that. I just want to kind of demonstrate approaches that might work for you. And now for the arm, for the hands, not much going on here, right? Just kind of little bits and pieces here. So let's go to sphere. Let's kind of add basically the pad for the hand. Right, something like this. I'm going to widen it a little bit here. Okay, so this is just basically where the little paw, the little guys are going to attach to. Right, so we can use a capsule. You can just fairly use a capsule for these. So I'm going to drag out a little capsule for the thumb. Jam it in there. Okay, scale it up as much as you need to. Make it the size that you want because we're going to use this a few more times. Right, I'm just going to come here, hold down Control, and drag out a copy. I'm going to hold down Alt and move the pivot point to the bottom of this, so that when I rotate it, it'll rotate essentially from what amounts to the the bottom knuckle. Something like this. Control, drag out a copy. Get the little finger there like this. Right. Let's get them where you need them to go. Control, drag out a copy. And now we have these little guys. Right. This one looks like it comes kind of way off the side a little bit here. Okay, there you go. I'll clean my mask. Now, at this low resolution in Dynamesh, if I try and Dynamesh these together, you'll get this little thing where they kind of get webby, right? Because the resolution isn't high enough to maintain that. So now we're going to need to increase our resolution a little bit. And you might it might be a trial and error process. You might need to kind of increase it a little bit more, so that when you do this, you'll have enough points for that to be kind of completely meshed together without weird things happening. So I try and keep things low res when I'm shaping it, but you might need to adjust that as things go on. Okay, I think that I'm going to go here to my move tool. I'm going to hold down Alt and move it up here because I think everything but the head needs to be shrunk down. So I'm going to shrink down the arms. Now I'm going to go to the body, and I'm going to shrink down the body. Now see, it's getting a little bit weird, so I'll hold down, hit X, turn symmetry off, go to Google Maps icon to center it. Now I'm going to hold down Alt and bring it up here, so when I scale it down, it'll scale down to about there. And that feels a little bit better in terms of the overall length of things. I'll hit X, turn symmetry back on, then go back to my arms and just bring them in so they match. I think that we have a better proportion at this point. Now I'm going to go to the body, and just because it's a little bit rough because it was Dynamesh, I'm going to turn Dynamesh off. I'm going to come down here to Zero Mesher, hit same, and then Zero Mesh. Now it's going to make it a little bit cleaner, and I need to fill it with that color again, right? So now you got that. And I can, just, you know, for the sake of keeping things going here, go to my paintbrush, and that's not paint. Go to brush P, A, there you go. And now I'm going to come in here and just rough in right where his little belly is going to be, just to kind of, again, just give us a guide here. Okay, there we go. So there we go. So next video, we're going to work on his little legs, which, as you may have guessed, is not going to be terribly different from his little arms. And then we'll keep going. All right, so now we're going to do his little legs. Again, not much different than the little arms. Generally speaking, in this case, though, we don't need to have the shoulders so much to kind of separate from the body. So I'm just going to go here with a basic cylinder. So let's go here to my insert primitive, and let's go here to a cylinder. And look underneath here. And I'm just going to make them in a boring pose right now. I'm going to hold down, hit C, sample the color of the body, so that when I bring these out, in that color, I'm going to scale them in a little bit like this, maybe something like so, and then just kind of bring them, make sure they go in the body, because you don't want to have those sharp edges of the cylinders. And down here we can just lightly smooth, because we don't want those edges here as well. Okay, and I'm going to split these off, split unmasked points. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to go here. Now what I'm going to do is, just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to hit X, turn symmetry off. Hold down Control, Shift, and Alt, all three. Control, Shift, and Alt. So it goes my selection tool, but it also goes to the hiding tool, right? So Control and Shift goes to your selection tool. Hold down Alt. Now it's going to hide. I'm going to click and drag a big box and just get this left-hand side one off, and then hit Delete Hidden up here. Okay, just because I want to use the deformer, and it's much easier to use deformers and stuff like that when you don't have to worry about symmetry being turned on. So I got my gear. I'm going to go here to my trusty bend curve. I have 3 little dots. I'm just going to kind of bring the little leg out like this, give him a little bend in the leg, maybe look at it from the side view, make sure he's got a little knee coming forward like this, right? Just to kind of get the leg roughly in position. I'm going to go to my gear again, hit accept, and now we're going to add his little foot. So the little foot's not much different than the hand, I guess, technically. So we're going to insert a sphere. I'm going to look at from underneath here and drag out a little sphere here, and then just bring it in like this. I'm going to rotate it down a little bit and scale it vertically so it kind of comes into this little shape like so. Now I'm going to go here to my move tool again. I'm going to go to my flatten deformer, and I'm going to flatten this a little bit like this, just to kind of get it so that it's got a little bit more of a of that kind of bottom that we're looking for. I'm going to go to my move brush, and let's go ahead and bring this forward a little bit. Right. And again, you know a lot more about the shape. I'm guessing from the picture, so it has a little bit more of a wider front than the back. And I can Control Tab to invert this and just kind of bring in this part so it kind of goes into the foot a little bit better. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and get out of that. Now there is a little, it looks like the little nubs here are separate pieces, so I'm not going to worry about adding those at the moment. Let's just go ahead and crank up my resolution something like 100 or so, turn Dynamesh on so that I can smooth that out a little bit here, like so. I'll come down here to mirror, right? It's already set to merge into one subtool across the x-axis. So now we got that. I'm going to turn X on, turn symmetry on, and go to my move tool, and just, whatever you got to do. I might kind of have to move this in a little bit, even maybe shrink them down vertically, so that, because his legs aren't quite so long, right? But now we have ourselves a little bit of that. All right, so now I'm going to come here. He does have a little tail, so I'm going to go to his little body here and go to my insert sphere brush, right? And go ahead and just bring out this little tail. Same idea, right? Let's go to my move tool. I'm going to squash it in a little bit like this. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and maybe I'm going to do a little bit of, look at my bend curve here. I'm going to bring this in like this and bring this up. And you can grab these guys and scale it out a little bit. You can bring this up and scale that in a little bit, right? Just to kind of give that little tail. Okay, I go here, my little gear, and hit accept. Go to my inflate brush and just give it a little bit of a rounded look here. Make sure to turn symmetry on for this. I don't think I had it on. Now I do. Okay, little tail. I'm going to leave it on there. We're gonna fuse this together anyway. So we're about at the point where certain things can be done to kind of fuse everything together. We have to get his little toes on there, and so forth. But let's just get the body. So I'm going to go here to the body, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my undo history. Okay, make sure you save. I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on the current state of where we are. What that's going to do is going to save the way it looks. Now, even though it's blocky, I just want to kind of keep that color roughly, and you'll see what happens. So I'm going to come down here. First things first, I want to blend these. I want these two to be connected to each other. Like this is right now a separate piece. I want this to be fused together. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this down a little bit here. Okay. What I'm going to do is I want to fuse them together. So first thing we have to do, we have to turn this. I'm not going to do Dynamesh. I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to show you how. So hit X, turn symmetry off. It's very important that symmetry is off for this. Go to your move tool, and we're going to go here to our gear, and we're going to choose something here called remesh by union, and go ahead and hit that button. Now what happens is if I go to polyframe, you can see what it does is it basically just welds it together. It just sews these things together where the points intersect. It's a very ugly way of doing things, but the reason why I like this is because it doesn't rebuild the whole mesh. It just sews it together, and the reason why that's useful, I'll get my little gear, hit accept now. Now let's go here and turn symmetry back on, also very important. But now if I go here to remesh, it'll remesh it, and it'll remesh these two as a single object, whereas before, if this was a separate object, it would remesh them individually. So now if I hit ZRemesher with same, it's going to go through and remesh this whole thing. You can see now, right, they're actually connected. It's all one piece, okay? Now, here's the thing. You lose your paint when you ZRemesh. And the reason why I went up here and I hit that, held down Control and click on that is because I saved the way it looked back when it had that paint on there. So I'm going to come over here to my subtool palette, and I'm going to tell ZBrush to look back at that and kind of reproject the paint back on the model. So to do that, come here to subtool palette, and you can scroll down, and you're going to see an option here for project. Okay. Now I don't want to project the geometry. I don't want it to look at where it was before and make it look like that. What I do want it to make it look like is the color. So turn off geometry and hit project history. It's going to say, do you want to use poly paint, which is color? Hit yes. And there you go. Now you have that paint back again. It's nothing amazing, but it's useful. Now to get rid of that, just come over here to your most recent one, hold down Control and double tap, 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 and now it goes away. Okay. So now I can hit Control D if I want to kind of subdivide this and give it a little bit more, a little more, points. And before we do much else, the last thing I want to do before we go to the next thing is I want to keep the ears separate from the head. Even though eventually they should be connected, I just think it's easier to work like this. But I'm going to go to the head and do the same thing while we're in that mode. I want to see this is still Dynamesh and it's still ugly. So I want to come up here again, turn off Dynamesh, hold down Control and tap on where we are. Okay, I'm going to come here to ZRemesher, same. Make sure that symmetry is on. Right, ZRemesh. So now it's going to rebuild it, and you're going to see it rebuilds it, and the edges now flow right the way they're supposed to. Here it was before, and now they flow better. But I don't have any of my color, so I'll come down here again, turn off geometry, and hit project history, yes, and now I got my color back. Okay, and now I can Control double tap to make that go away. Now I can hit Control D if I want, subdivide this at least once just to kind of get a little bit of smoothness going on. Right, and now we have ourselves at least the starting point of a little stitch here with a face that is now sculptable because it has a better poly flow. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop right now. In the next video, we're going to add the little claws and the little nubs for the feet, and then we'll start looking at adding some of the final details before we start posing. All right, so let's take a look at what we need to do here. Let's get the little claws and the little nubs at the bottom here. So I'm going to go here to the legs. Now the legs have not been remeshed, so really quickly I'm going to select that color by hitting C, come here to ZRemesh with same. Now it's going to be a lot cleaner. I'll hit fill. No need to reproject anything because there's nothing but the basic color here. And I'm just going to give myself an indication of where the little guys are going to go. So let's go here to my standard brush, and I'm just going to kind of really quickly just give myself a little like inverted circle, like the top half of a circle here. This is like where the little nubs are going to go. These are just basically me guessing where they're going to go, like this. Now I'll hold down the Alt key and just kind of push in with a little bit of this, just to kind of say, okay, this is where I'm going to pop those little guys. They're just little nubs, right? So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to leave them on. Eventually I'm going to split them off, but I'm going to leave them on for now. The reason being is because when I pose the legs, it'll make more sense to have them already attached. So I don't have to worry about having, pose the little claws and the legs separately. So come here to my insert primitives, spheres, right? I'm just going to kind of have a very dark color here. It's like very, very, very dark blue. I'm going to click and drag a little guy here. I'm going to look from underneath. That way, when I push these in from underneath, I'm going to hit my little Google Maps to center it here. But I can kind of make sure that as I move them around, you can see how I'm just going to reorient this a little bit. But as I move these around, they're going to stay in the same plane, right? So hold down Control, just drag out a copy, put that right there. Control, oops, I missed Control, drag out a copy, put that right there. Control, drag out a copy. Right, this is the Mario mustache all over again. There we go. And now I'm just going to Control, tap, and drag to remove those. And again, like you can, if you hold down Control and Shift for your selection tool and tap on the legs, you can hide those for a second. You can just mask out the legs, and then Control, Shift, tap to bring these back. That way, if you want to, you can get your move brush and adjust these as much as you want to, right? Because they're different polygroups, because there's different objects. I brought in these spheres separately from the legs, so they're a different polygroup. So Control Shift, clicking on either the toes or the legs will kind of change that for you. So now I'm going to hold down Control and tap to invert my mask, and just going to get my move brush and just kind of nudge this up a little bit so that the foot and the little nubs are kind of similarly on the bottom of on the ground. I'm just nudging them down a little bit here. Okay, there you go. So now we have those little nubs there. And again, we can always adjust them, do whatever you want, but I'm just throwing in throwing these little guys in there. Now for the claws, and again, the fingers have not been sculpted. There's nothing going on here. They're very boring. But for the claws, I'm just going to build one and then duplicate them again, just to have them roughly in place. Now I believe, let me see, the arms here have not been remeshed either. You can see how that's ugly, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come down here, make sure symmetry is on, otherwise it won't remesh them symmetrically, and hit same for the number of points, zero mesher, right? It's going to go ahead and do that. You are going to lose your paint, so I'm going to come down here and sample the leg color, which is by hitting the C key, and then just hit fill object, right? So now that's back with the nice topology here, the nice edge flow. So for the little claws, I'm just going to insert a Q cube, a regular old cube. It might seem weird. I'm going to go with a cube here. I'm going to drag it out right here. Okay, I'm going to sample this color here by hitting C and hit fill. And if I go to polyframe, you can see here, this little dude is not very high res, right? So I'm going to just hit my move brush to make that go away. Let's go to my move tool. I'm going to swap this out for a different cube. So let's go here to my little gear and choose polycube. And you can see here, this one gives me a cube with a little bit more resolution on it, but I could even go more. If I go here with my polycube tab, I get these little gears, these little cones, which allows me to kind of pull and give myself more subdivisions. And really what I care about is divisions going the length of this, because I want to kind of give it a little bit of a bend. Okay, so there you go. Gizmo 3D. I'm going to scale it down like this because it's a claw. I'm going to scale it down like this because it's a claw, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my little gear and I'm going to choose Deformer Hard. It's just a cage, and hard means basically it's going to be really stingy about how much of what I do with some dots carries over to the other part. So I want this part here. I'm going to hold down Control. I have my mask lasso here. I'm going to lasso out these middle guys. That's going to mask out the middle ones. Control tap to invert that, and now these are the only ones I can grab. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these and pull them up like this. I want this to kind of arch back like that. Okay. Now I'm going to clear my mask. Now I'm going to mask out the one that's near the point, right? And now I'm going to Control Tap to invert that. So now it's just these. Now I'm going to grab this little yellow dude and pull it in to kind of make it, you know, pointy, right? And then I'm going to make it a bit pointier. Maybe move it down a little bit, okay? Maybe pull it out a little bit. So I'm just kind of like getting myself roughly a shape here. Hit accept. I'm going to turn off polyframe. I'm going to make sure I fill that again so it stays that color. And now what I can do, just to give this a little bit of a smoother edge, I'm going to come down here to this little slider we had here called Polish by Features. I'm just going to crank it a little bit. And then you can see how it kind of gives it a nice, it just kind of smooths it out a little bit, but it still maintains the overall shape. I'm going to go to my move brush and just kind of pull this with a small brush size just to kind of make it a little pointier. Maybe damn standard here to kind of carve in a little bit here just to kind of make that look a little bit more crooked like so, right? And now I'm just going to get my move tool and just jam it into the finger. For these, I am going to scale, I'm going to break them off. I'm going to split them off. So let's go ahead and, let me see, I'm just going to make it a little bit longer. Just narrowing it a little bit here because I'm looking at the picture and it looks like they're a little bit more narrow here, like this. Okay, split unmasked points, and now I'm going to go to this one and do the same thing we did with the little toes. I'm just going to hold down the Control key and just drag out a copy and put them roughly into place. Right, Control, and drag out a copy. These are a little bit trickier because they're not in a row the same way the toes, the little toe nubs were, but they're close enough. Control, drag out a copy and bring it over here to the thumb. Right, and just kind of angling it in so that it goes to where the thumb is supposed to be. Okay, you know, like so. Okay, clear my mask, and there we go. All right, so now we have all the little parts. We have to do his little hair on top of his head there, maybe a little bit scruffy here. But for the most part, he is mostly put together, right? So we're going to do a little bit of posing, and then we're going to add some of these little things. We'll add some details, and then we'll be on our way. Okay, so before we do the final like details and stuff like that and clean them up a little bit, we have to add the rest of the little bits of hair up here, maybe the little bit of tuft on the chest. And we're going to do that pretty much the same way we've done some things with the cheese spider, which is using deformers. So I'm just going to come over here into my subtool palette. I'm going to go here, insert, and I'm going to choose a cylinder. I'm going to hover over the head here, hit the C key to sample that color, and let's just hit fill object. And now I'm going to bring this up here, and we're going to scale this down quite a bit. This is just going to be my little tufts of hair here. And I'm just going to go to my gear and go to bend curve, and I'm going to grab my little orange cone and pull this out to give me 3. That way I can bend it a little bit. I'm going to pull it down here and just bend it this way. And the bend curve also has a scale cone, so if I grab that and scale it in, I can kind of just scale it down like that, right? And I can even scale this one up if I want to. And then go to my little gear again and hit accept. Now it's going to pull out a couple of these, right? So first I'm going to do is hold down the Alt key and pull this down here so the pivot point is at the base of the head, at the base of the hair. Now I can hold down Control and just drag out a copy and scale it up or down, whatever I want to do, right? This one here, maybe I'm going to actually scale it down a little bit and then rotate it so it kind of goes the opposite direction. Like this. It looks like that's kind of the way this one goes. It kind of comes out and a little like this. This is probably going to be a little bit less of a bend, so I'm going to just try and bend that back a little bit. Bend it this way, maybe scale that one out a touch, and then bring it in like this. Okay. Gonna hit accept. Now I'm going to hold down Control and tap to invert my mask. So now I'm back to my original, and now I can just Control drag out a copy of that one because this one's already bending in the direction that I want. There you go. Now I got these little guys, right? I'll clear my mask. Now we got these. I can come in here and lightly smooth with the shift key just to kind of knock down a little bit of that. And these are different bits of clay, so we can isolate them if I want to using the selection tool. But for now, this is perfectly fine. I just want to kind of give myself a little bit of something here. And what I could also do, if I want to, come down here to my deformation tab here and just go to inflate, right? And just kind of puff those up a little bit. Okay, there you go. Now I'm just going to rotate them a little bit like this, just to kind of get it a little more. Go to my pinch brush, which is, you know, B and then P, and then got the pinch brush. I have a shortcut keys for it, so I'm just going to go ahead and just grab that really fast. There you go. So we have ourselves a little bit of a hair thing there. Let's just get my move brush and just knock this down a bit. Okay. For this little stuff here, I don't think I'm going to actually sculpt it on there. You totally could, but I might just sculpt it out with a regular old sculpting brush when all is said and done. But let's now kind of do a little bit of cleaning up of the actual face and get some of the brows and stuff in there moving forward. Okay, so let's go here on the head. I'm going to hit the N key on my keyboard. That'll bring up actually my subtool palette in my scene, so I can go just find it that way. And we've already remeshed this, if I recall correctly. And now let's go here in my geometry tab. I've already divided it once. Let's divide it a second time. And let's come in here and do a little bit of sculpting on the head here. So I'm going to go to my standard brush. And I'm going to come here and just drag out a little bit of a ridge around the eye, because you can see there's a little bit of a ridge there. And do the same thing down here. I come in here and build up a little bit here around the nose area. Now again, I'm gonna go kind of quickly here, just for the sake of the video. I'm actually back at I'm using my clay build-up brush now, which I just think goes on a little bit nicer for some reason, and it just smooths out a little bit nicer when I do so. And now that you've had that roughed in, you can of course come in here and adjust this. So I can kind of adjust the overall shape of this. Now what I want to do is hit B for brush and then J. I'm going to go here a brush here called J Cut A. It's very much like the damn standard brush. It carves in a light line, but if I hold down the Alt key and kind of click and drag, it'll kind of pull and pinch a line, just like the damn standard brush does. But this brush just seems to do a better job, in my opinion. So I'm just going to kind of drag that out here and just kind of use that as a way of cleaning up these edges a little bit. Back to my J-cut brush, I'm going to hold down Alt and then drag a little line around here like this. Okay, just to kind of get a little bit of that on here as well. I'm going to paint this more in a little bit, but I just want to kind of get that roughly in place there. Okay. And again, everything here needs to be, let's go here to the, I'm going to just do a couple of cleanup things before we get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm going to go here to the teeth. You can see here, these are ugly, these are Dynamesh. I'm going to hit C to sample that color, Z-remesh it same, and now it's going to be a little bit cleaner. I can fill it with that color, hit Control D once or twice to make it a little bit cleaner. Push it into the mouth. I'm going to do the same thing with these guys. These don't need to be remeshed, they're not Dynamesh, but I'm going to subdivide them a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of do a little bit of cleanup there. And for the eyes, just because it bothers me that I don't see the nice little highlight on here, I'm actually just going to go ahead and make my own. So I have them semi-high resolution. I'm going to subdivide them one more time. I'm going to go to my mask circle really fast, drag out a little white circle here, invert that, and then I'm just going to throw some paint in there. Get my paintbrush and just throw some in there. It just makes me feel better to see that white there. Okay, anyway. So with regard to his actual face, let's go back to his face now. I think I need to get him a little bit rounder in the head. So I'm going to come over here with my brush and kind of pull that out. A little bit, round that head out a touch. Here you go. Okay. I think he actually has eyebrows. They're kind of a little heavy darkness right there. So I don't know for sure whether it makes sense to actually make them a separate piece. I'm just going to go here with my standard brush, and I'm going to come up here to my stroke menu and go to lazy mouse, which is on by default. I want to just increase the lazy radius. The longer the lazy radius is, the longer this little red line is that drags behind your brush, and it just kind of smooths that brush stroke out. So if I want to have a nice clean line, and I don't want my hand to be too shaky, then I'm just going to go ahead and do it that way. Okay, so I'm just dragging out basically a bead of clay using my standard brush, but because I've turned up the lazy radius, it's just going on a little bit cleaner. That's all. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of a cleaner line on this eyebrow ridge here. Okay, like that. And you can turn it right back down. I have it up here. You might not be able to see this on yours because I think your screen is a little smaller than mine. So you just go up here to stroke and turn your lazy radius back down to 1 if you want. That's the default setting. All right, so just something like that. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick I'm going to go quick here with my mask lasso. And now that I've added a little bit more points to this model, I want to just, I'm going to go to my mask, I'll go to my mask circle again. I just want to have this eye area just painted a little bit more exactly here. So I'm going to go back to my paintbrush and just throw some paint in there. Okay, again, not perfect. I'm just trying to, it was just bugging me that it was so so imperfect there. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to throw in some color and then smooth it out. When you smooth, it smooths out your paint as well if you have RGB turned on when you go to smooth, so just so you know. I'm going to go back to my J-cut brush and just kind of come in here and just try and clean up that line a little bit here. And by the way, a lot of this is me doing it, then hitting undo and trying it again. So if you have that same problem, you're in good company. I have the same issue. All right, so there we have the face a little bit better. We have our little details here. I think now we can start looking at posing him. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. Okay, so we blocked out most of him here. I want to talk about how you can pose a character, because obviously if I want to move him around a little bit here, doing so. Like I couldn't move his head without moving his eyes and his nose and all that kind of stuff. So I want to be able to move everything at once. And we looked at a way of doing that with the cheese spider, but there's actually another way of posing a character that has a lot of subtools. And we're going to do that using what's called transpose mesh or transpose master, which are these two buttons over here. This first one is going to temporarily combine all these into a single subtool that you can kind of mask and move. And the second button is going to split it back up into its component parts with the pose version ready to go. Now here's an important thing to know about this. When we use this, this is just for posing. You can't go into this mode to pose him and then subdivide or get rid of something. It needs to be the exact same model coming out as it is going in. So don't subdivide, don't do anything like that, just pose. So I'm going to come over here and hit this first little button, T-pose mesh. It's going to switch everything to its lowest subdivision level, and it's going to pop it into what's called this T-pose 1. You're going to see here it has no paint, so that's why it looks, it's whatever color you currently have here. So I'm just going to move this over here. So this is just a temporary model. Up here you'll see my actual model is still right here, just fine, but this is just a temporary model. And each subtool, if I go to polyframe, each subtool is its own polygroup. So when it comes to masking things and moving them, we could use our selection tool to kind of isolate the things that we want to move. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to just actually move the whole thing. I'm going to hit the move tool. Now symmetry is not on in Transpose Master, and that's good because typically you want to pose it asymmetrically. I'm just going to hold down Alt and move this right down here. Generally speaking, when you want to pose a character, you start from the root, which is the center of gravity down here like in the waist, and then you move outward. And you can see here this guy is angled. So I'm going to come here and just grab this and angle it this way. Incidentally, before you do this, you can always go back to this right now, and before you do anything, save this out, save this as Stitch. And then you want to, after you do this and you pose this, we're going to save this as Stitch Posed. You always want to have the original available to you in case you need to kind of go back and work with that. Okay, and you can do that right now, it's no big deal. So I'm just going to move this so that the root is in the angle that I want. That's all, I don't care about anything else, okay? Now I want to basically bend the spine because you see it's going back this way and then it kind of curves back up, right? So it's like a C curve here. So I want to be able to kind of mask through the body and mask out the legs. So I'm going to hold down Control and Shift to go to my selection tool and tap on the arms and Control tap on them a second time. That's going to hide them. And if I Control tap on the claws, it'll hide them too. That way it's easy for me to get in here and mask what I want. I'm going to go here to my Control key and change this to Mask Lasso. I'm going to lasso out right to about under the rib cage here, where that rib cage would be. Then I'll hold down Control and tap once on the mesh. That'll blur that mask so it bends a little bit more smoothly. You can Control tap a couple times and blur it some more. But before I pose him, I need the arms back. So Control Shift and then tap somewhere out here in space. Control Shift tap brings everything back, right? So now I'm going to go to my Move tool, W. I'm going to hold down Alt and bring this. Hold down Alt and bring this right about here. And I'm going to rotate this way a little bit, right? I can actually pull it up a little bit too and kind of give it a little bit more of some leeway there, okay? So again, looks silly, but we're getting there. I'm going to clean my mask. Now let's work on the head. So I want to basically isolate the whole head here. It's hard, there's a lot of pieces. So I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and click on the body. Control Shift click on the body again, and Control Shift click on the arms again. Now I've hidden those. Now it's very easy for me just to mask out the entire head, right? Control Shift tap to bring everything back, and then Control tap to invert my mask. So there's a lot of like isolating things, masking things, and then switching the mask. Go to Move Tool, hold down Alt and bring this to the neck, and let's bring the head down this way a little bit, right? Okay. Now again, you could also, I'm going to clear my mask. You could also look at this from the front. I can rotate the whole guy forward like this. Now you don't need to do this. I'm just letting you know that it's important to remember it's a 3D model, which means you're posing it not just from front to back and left to right, but you're posing it in all directions, right? So I might want to also maybe angle him back a little bit here. Let's give this a little bit more. Oops. Hang on a second. I have to isolate this guy and get a better mask on him. And then angle this back a little bit. So I just want to kind of, again, why not give him a little bit more going on. Now for the, let's move the arms. So I'll Control Shift tap on the arms. I'll Control Shift tap on them again to hide. And don't forget, we want to get rid of the claws as well. So Control Shift tap. So now I'm just going to mask out the whole guy here. Now just so you know, you can hold down Control and try and mask out the whole thing, which is easy enough. But if you know that nothing is masked and you don't want to miss anything, just Control tap, because Control tap inverts a mask. And if you have nothing masked, then Control tapping in space will mask everything. Now I can Control Shift tap to bring everything back, and I'm just going to mask out this left arm. So now, his right, on my left. Now I'm going to hold down Alt. Oops, sorry, I'm going to hold down Alt, not Control, and I want to move this arm. Now something's weird here. Hang on, something got. I did not unmask the claws when I was bending him backward, so I have to go back and undo. See, we all do this kind of thing. All right, so let's do it the right way now. For goodness sakes, Control Shift tap on the arm. I'm going to mask everything. Bring this back. All right, so now I have the arm. That was it happens. I'm going to rotate the arm out, rotate it forward, maybe something like this. Right? Going to bring it up like this. This is why it's good to have them separate from the body. That way you don't have to worry about this getting too deformed. And now I want to bend the arm a little bit. So I'm going to go from this angle and mask out to about where his little elbow would probably be. Don't forget, Control and Alt is an unmasker. Now I can Control tap a couple times to blur that mask. Go to your Move tool. I'm going to hold down Alt and then tap. And it's going to put the Move tool wherever I tap it. So it'll give me a kind of a head start. I want to put this right inside the elbow here. Okay, and I want the arm to come up like this, right? Something like this. Maybe move back a little bit. Now I'm just going to mask out where the little wrist would be. Control tap a few, oops, undo. Control tap, stop that. Control tap a few times. And then I want to maybe angle that wrist back a tiny bit as well. All right. And you can get as into this as you want, right? I can kind of mask out his little finger and invert that. Go to my Move tool and bend his little finger forward. This is the kind of thing that would be very tedious to watch a person do, but it's not a bad idea to do it anyway, because it does make your character's pose a lot more interesting if you have bent fingers as opposed to like little starfish hands where nothing's bent. So, just so you know. All right, we're a little bit far into the video here, so I'm going to stop this and we're going to come back and we're going to finish the pose in the next one. All right, so we're back to posing again. We're going to be doing the other arm now. So Control Shift tap on this arm. I'll Control Shift tap on it again, and then Control Shift tap on the claws. I'll just Control tap to mask everything. Control Shift tap to bring everything back, and now I can just mask out this other arm. So now the right arm and the claw are the only thing that I can work on. Let's go here and just swing this arm forward a little bit. Swing it out and up. Right, so I'm just trying to get that arm to feel like it's doing what he's doing in the picture, and something like that is probably close. And I'll need to bend it at the elbow. Didn't really do much work in making a clear elbow, so it's a little bit tricky. But I don't know that he has one in the drawing either, so I'm not gonna get too upset about it. I'm gonna put this little dude right here, and let's bring that little arm up. Okay, and I'm going to just kind of do a little bit of the same thing here, and I kind of try and kind of figure out where the little wrist is based on our little indentation there. Control tap a couple times. Go to my move tool, and I want to put this little guy right here. And again, I would suggest when you're posing yours to go ahead and get some good finger bends in there and so forth. I think that you can. Now again, I'm going to clear for the finger bends. I clear my mask. That way I can just mask out the finger and then invert that mask. Again, it's always easier in most cases to mask out the smaller area that you want to move and then invert that mask, as opposed to trying to make sure that you mask out everything but that area. In my opinion, that's never the best way to go. I'm just going to do the same thing here. Just mask out this little finger, invert it, control tap a few times, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to just move it back and just actually push this one back a little bit, like he's, you know. Now I'm just going to make the thumb close in a little bit here. Bend the posing fingers. I will say this, and again, this is a little bit different because his fingers aren't obvious fingers, but they're close. Posing fingers is a very important part of making a character look alive. It's also the least interesting, and I totally get that. But okay, let's go ahead and do the legs now. So Control Shift tap on the legs. These little knobs are part of the legs, which is great because I can very easily just mask out one now. Control Shift tap to bring everything back and then invert that. Right. Let's bring his little move tool here to where the little hip would be, and I want to bring it out and probably forward. Right. He's like kicking forward a little bit here. I would say something like this. Right. And now you can see a little bit coming out here. I can actually get my move brush and just kind of push that in there. You can totally do that. You don't need to only use the move tool. You just don't want to add or subtract any points from your mesh. It needs to be the exact same mesh in terms of point count and objects coming out as it was going in. But you can go ahead and smooth and do it, everyone. And speaking of smoothing, there's always going to be a little bit of cleanup to be done when you come out of here. Like this, it's unavoidable. So you're not doing it wrong if things get a little bit bent. That's unavoidable. Okay, Control Shift tap. Now let's do the same thing here. Let's grab this guy, invert that mask. So hopefully this process is making sense. It's a lot of rather tedious masking and moving, but it's it really makes everything feel a lot more alive. I'm going to kind of make his little leg come back this way. I'm going to give it a little bit more of a bend too. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit like this. Now let's go ahead and see if we can bend this at what I guess is his knee. Like I said, I didn't do a great job of making the joints obvious, but again, I think hopefully it makes sense here. I'm just going to bend it like that a little bit. Okay, so I think that's a good enough look here for how things are going. Let's go down here now, hit the second button, T-pose and subtool. Now it's going to jump back to the original, and in a terrifying way, it's going to kind of like now basically replace everything with the new guy. Okay, now keep in mind now, I brought it back, but you can see symmetry is still turned on, which is not helpful anymore because symmetry he's no longer symmetrical, right? So I have to hit X to turn symmetry off for all these things. Otherwise, as you can see, they're not really going to work. So just keep in mind that symmetry now is kind of useless because there's nothing symmetrical to work on here. I'm just going to repaint this a little bit here, paint these little ears. This purple didn't really look good. Looks like it was bruised. So just hit Control D a couple times to kind of make this look nice and smooth. And let's do the same thing here. Now again, we can fuse these arms and bodies together. I just don't know that it matters to do that. We totally can, and we can talk about that if you want. But I don't know that it really makes sense to do it. It looks fine without it. And there's some sculpting to do obviously here. Let's go here on the body, turn symmetry off. This is very low res, so I'm going to subdivide this a little bit. And I'm going to hit C to sample this color. I'm actually going to go to my mask pen and just kind of mask out because in this case, it's probably easier just to kind of paint out where I want the belly to be. Okay, something like this. I'm going to come up here and hit sharpen mask, so now it's going to be nice and clean. Now invert that mask and then just hit fill object, so now it's nice and clean on there, right? Now, as far as these little guys go here, we can totally sculpt those out. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to divide this one more time, so I have 3.4 million. For these little things, you can do it a couple different ways. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways. Not all perfect ways, but here's some ideas. So if I go here to, for example, to my mask lasso, I could, right, just kind of like come in here and drag out a little shape like this, invert this, sharpen the mask, and then just kind of pull out some clay like that, and then just kind of smooth that out. Go back down to a lower subdivision level and smooth that out. I can kind of do something like that, right? So you can totally just like mask out something like that. But there's also a couple of brushes we can use. So let's just look at those brushes because they are pretty useful for things like this. Let's come up here to my light box. I'll go here to brush, okay? And now I'm going to go here. I think this is where I'm going to go. Go here to the brush called, the folder called fur, okay? So double tap on the folder called fur. Now you're going to see these little brushes are basically regular old brushes, but they drag out with an alpha little tufts of fur. Now it's important to know that some of these are not actually brushes. Some of them are just pictures. So for example, if I come up here and tap on this, you can see here it says .psd. That's a Photoshop document. That's not a brush. If I tap on this .zbp, that is a brush. So you just have to kind of like, before you get too quick into doing these things, just make sure the brush that you're grabbing is actually going to be a brush and not just be some, you know, some random thing. So you can kind of like decide for yourself, again, I'll say this a number of times, but what you want to try. Some of these are really cool, some of them aren't useful. So if I want to do something very simple, I'll go to something like this brush right here. I'll double tap on this. You see here it's a drag rectangle, drags out a stroke. You might want to adjust the intensity here. If I come in here, just tap and drag, right, you can see it kind of gives me that nice little bit of clay on here. Now here's a cool little thing. Let's say I drag this out and I like it, but I wish it were a little bit more intense. Well, you could undo and change your intensity, but what you can also do is come up here to your stroke menu. You're going to see a slider here called Adjust Last. I'm going to move this over so you can see. And if I grab this slider and crank it up, it'll actually increase the intensity of that last brush I just did. Okay, so I'll go back to my brush here, and maybe for my second one, I'll do this little smaller version here, and I'll drag that out kind of like right here, maybe like right here. Okay. I'm actually going to mask out this little guy so I don't mess up this one. And then I'll just drag out my other little brush, something like right here. Then I'll go here to stroke, adjust last, and crank it up a little bit. And now we have this little fur on there, right? So again, just little quick ways of doing that. In the next video, we'll finish everything up. Okay, so in between videos, I went back into T-pose mesh and I just rotated his head down more. I wanted his head to be looking down. I think it was looking back a little bit too much. So this is really just going to be, again, this is meant to kind of show you the process of maybe making stitch. I'm not really necessarily showing you everything that you would want, you know, every single step in terms of like making everything look good, nice and clean. You know, in the details, because you know how to do details, you know how to do that kind of stuff. I just want to kind of show you a couple ideas that might be useful as well. So in terms of posing and so forth, you know about that, but in terms of like adding these little indentations, if you want to keep things nice and clean, if I want to add like an indentation here, I'm on the arms right now, I believe, right? Yeah. What you can do is let's go to your brush palette, hit B for brush, hit O. It's only going to grab this, it's only going to go to one brush because there's only one brush whose name begins with O, and it's the Orb Cracks brush. And this brush is like damn standard, but it's very kind of like extreme. So if I come in here and just kind of cut this in, let's subdivide this. You can see here, like this, if I want to kind of have like an indentation, this is not subtle. Like damn standard is like this, right? It's like it's kind of like a little soft edged thing. But the Orb Cracks brush does not fool around. It's just a very kind of like clean edged cut. And I often like to use this brush when I'm just looking for no subtlety at all. I'm just like kind of like I want to keep this somewhat, somewhat. I don't know what the word is, but just not a whole lot of crazy detail. I just want to have these like one or two lines that do the job. And Orb Cracks is really great for this because it just cuts right in with a nice clean edge. And I tend to like this brush quite a bit. So I'm just letting you know that's kind of a brush that I often will use if I'm kind of going for kind of a simple look. Let's come down here again. Yeah, just go to your standard brush, for example, and come in here and look at where you had the little parts. Now, here's the thing. Before I build this up, these little toes are separate subtools from the legs. So let's come down here to my geometry tab and go back down to level 1 if you've already done this. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and tap on the legs. And you can see it's going to hide the little toes. Come down here and hit Split Hidden. That's only going to work if you're at your lowest subdivision level. So I'm going to hit Split Hidden, and now I can go back up. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to make sure that I can kind of like sculpt around the toes to kind of make the little bumpies around the toes without accidentally sculpting on the actual little toe nubs. So I'm just going to come in here and just sculpt these little guys in. This is little stuff like this, but obviously, you know, when it's your model, you want to make sure that everything is done as, you know, as thoroughly as you can. You don't want to skimp on this. I'm just trying to, you know, not bog you down with every little step so much as just making suggestions as to things. He's got these little, looks like they're just colors on the bottom of his foot. So I'm just going to basically just make that shape. So I'm going to go to my mask lasso here and kind of lasso it out. Same thing with this. This is hard to get a nice clean line. So if I hold down Control, I can go up here to Stroke, turn on Lazy Mouse. Even with my mask lasso, you can see here how kind of, again, it just evens my stroke out nicely. So now I can just, you know, invert the mask, go to my paintbrush, and throw that color in, right? You can even, if you want, do a little inflate if you want to kind of like have it stand out a little bit. But little things like this, you know, come in here. I just want to let you know little tricks like that using your lazy mouse on your lasso just kind of helps keep the shape nice and smooth. And that's especially important if, you know, you're doing something like this. A lot of times you don't need to have it so great, but in this case, maybe you do. Right, and do the same little thing here on the hands. Let's go to the actual hands here and just maybe, now in this case here, that lazy mouse is just getting in my way. So I'm just going to, you know, do a little guy here and just throw some paint in there, right? And you can just take your time with this. You can use the circular mask as well if you want. But, you know, now we're getting somewhere, right? So the one last thing that I want to talk about, and this is completely it's kind of an optional thing, but he's got little notches in his ears, right? So if you want to put little notches in his ears, that's what the final video is going to be. I'm going to show you a really quick way to do something like that. I want to put these little notches right there. I believe he's got one up here as well. And there's a really easy way to do it in ZBrush, which we'll talk about in the final video. Okay, so in this final video here, I just want to talk about ways you can kind of essentially remove parts of objects without having to actually get in there and remove them manually. We can just kind of tell ZBrush to fake it, essentially, and we can make it permanent if you wanted to print it out, but I'm saying, like, just for now, I can show you a really quick way to do that. And we're going to do that by using what's called a live boolean. And you're going to see a button up here for that. A boolean operation is simply an operation of adding or subtracting. That's all that means, basically. So with a live boolean, we can add or subtract from another shape using shapes. I can bring in a shape and kind of use it as a negative, essentially, and tell ZBrush to kind of, you know, remove clay from this ear, for example, where another object intersects with it. So I can kind of use it as like a cutout. So what I want to do is come here to my subtool palette here, and I'm going to find my ears. I'm going to grab these ears. And I'm actually going to just grab it and just drag them all the way down to the bottom. We don't need to do this, but it's just going to make it easier for us. And what I want to do now is I need to come over here and turn live boolean on. Now before you do, double check something here. Look over here in your subtool palette, and you got these little icons here. You got these little double circles, a circle and a dark circle, and these other two. Make sure they're all set to this leftmost one here. And also, if you accidentally tapped on, for example, one of these little arrows where it says start, make sure none of those are turned on as well. So if you have a start, just tap on it again and turn it off, because we're going to be using that down here, and we don't want to confuse ZBrush, basically. So let's go ahead and turn live boolean on. Nothing should happen because there's nothing going on yet. but we're going to basically tell ZBrush to look at objects in our subtool palette and kind of use them as like ways of removing clay from objects above it. So I want to make sure that it knows that the ears are the ones that I want to remove or add things to. So the way to do that is to come here and tap on that little arrow that says start. What that's going to tell ZBrush is whatever is beneath this is going to be used as a subtractive or an additive mesh. Now, of course, in this case, we're going to be subtractive, and we'll see how we can do that. So what I want to do basically is just have a little notch taken out, right? So what I'm going to do is come here to insert. I'm going to insert a cube. Okay. Now I'm going to keep it the same color as the ear. So I'm going to hover over the ear, hit C, and hit fill, and make sure it's filled that way. And all I want to do basically is I want to rotate it kind of like this, right? So that this little triangle here is going to kind of like intersect with this ear, like this, right? See how it's kind of like intersecting in there. Well, that's not really helpful right now. It's just sitting there. But I need now to tell ZBrush to look at this object and not add it to the ears, but subtract it. And this first little icon, by default, is additive. It's saying it's going to use this and it's going to add it to the ear. And that's what you're seeing. But if I were to go to this next one and tap that on, you're going to see that is now a subtractive one. And you can see here now it's taking away from that ear. Okay, which is really cool. Now, if I were to, let me just see something here. So what I want, this is a very sharp edge, and this is a little bit more rounded here. So let's take a look. I'm going to go here and bring this back to additive for a second. What I'm going to do is hit D. And remember, D, if you remember, it's going to show me a smooth preview, right? So I hit D, it's going to make me, now it might not do this for you. It might ask you if you want to do a smooth preview and just hit yes. So hitting D makes this look rounded. And what that's going to do now is going to make the negative area rounded as well. So if I hit my little make it negative, now you can see it does a lot better job of taking a little notch out of that ear. Now if I go to polyframe, it'll actually show me the cube, because it's called live boolean for a reason. I can just grab this and move it around. It's going to kind of like adjust whatever it needs to do. What I want to do is, this is a very right angle, and this is a little bit more of a squeezy one. So I'm going to hold down Alt and hit my little orientation arrow to reorient my arrow. And now if I scale it down vertically, you're going to see it's going to kind of squash. If I go to polyframe, you can see it's going to squash it like this. And that's just going to kind of give me a little bit more control over exactly what we're getting here, right? So I want to do something like this. I'm rotating it so I get a little more of a notch like this. Now, if I want another one over here, that's okay. I can just hold down Control and drag out a copy, just like we do for other things. I can just bring it over here and do the same thing. Put a little notch in his ear if I want to, right? And just adjust how it looks like that. Okay. So now again, this is a fake, right? If I turn live boolean off, now it's just a couple of little cubes sitting there. Turn it back on, it's there. So let's say, for example, I wanted to 3D print this. This, as it stands, would not come out this way. But there is a way, obviously, to kind of tell ZBrush to make that permanent. And again, that's something we can talk about. But I just wanted to let you know, this is a very cool and easy way, really, to make these kinds of changes to your mesh without really having to make them yourself. Okay, so hopefully that was useful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on perspective, get a little bit of a cool look here. I'm going to go with my light. I'm going to just move it off to one side a little bit, and I'm going to make hit a nice little render of this. So I just want to show you how you might do that if I haven't shown it to you before. I'm going to come up here to my render drop down. So I'm going to, instead of just doing a document export, I want there to be light and shadow. I want it to look cool. So I'll come here to my little render settings. I want to come here and make my shadows look nicer. So remember, what I'm going to be doing over here is seeing this little BPR button. This little button here, if I tap on this, it's going to take a render of my object. You're going to see it's fine. It gives me some lights and shadows, but the shadows are way too dark and it's not very pretty. So I want to adjust that a little bit. So I'm going to just nudge my camera so the shadows go away. And let's come up here and go to my render, and I want to adjust those shadows. So I'm going to come down here to my BPR shadow, because BPR is the button that we're hitting, right? So I want to go to my BPR shadow. A bunch of stuff here you're going to ignore. All we care about are these top two rows here. The F strength is the floor strength, how dark the shadow is on the floor. I'm going to bring it down to like 55%. The overall shadow strength, the 55 is the overall shadow. I'm going to do the same thing and bring it down to like 60 or 50, so it's not quite so much. Now, If I hit BPR now, you're going to see the shadows aren't quite so dark, right? Which is good. But the shadows themselves are still very harsh. They have a very sharp line. There's no like subtlety between them. And that's what this next row is about. The angle is how quickly it goes from light to dark. When it's set to 0, there's no blur at all. So I'm going to kind of, don't touch blur though. The angle is basically the gradient between light and shadow. I tend to do it between like 25 and 30, and then I make the number of shadow rays, which is basically the smoothness of that gradient, about 60. Okay. Now if I render it out again, you're going to see the shadows are going to take a little bit longer to calculate, but they're a lot more subtle. Now I'm going to do one more thing. I want to add some filters to this. So with this render active, if I move my camera and it goes away, these filters I'm going to add don't work. So hit BPR, let the render show up. And what I'm going to do is now come here to my little render. I'm going to tap on this little white dot here. It's going to bring my render stuff over here so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to close up shadow. I'm going to come down here to BPR filters. Filters are like little Instagram filters you can apply to the picture. I don't want to get too much into this, but I just want to do things like increase some of the contrast and give it a little bit of a vignette around the outside. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I tap on this, you can see here, nothing's happening. I have to hit this little white dot. That turns on the filter. Now the default filter here is noise, which I don't want. I'm just letting you know that's what happens. I can tap on the filter though and change this. All right, so what I'm going to do is change this to vignetting. And what a vignette does is, as you can see, it kind of gives you a little bit of a haze around the outside. I don't want a haze. I want a darker color. So I'm going to come down here to, and you can see the vignetting slider is set to -50, which means it's going to use the back color here. If I change that to dark, now I get this cool little darkening around the edges. But it also is darkening him. So the one thing I'm going to look at down here, all this stuff you can ignore, but this one here where it says mask, that's basically whether or not this effect applies to your character or the background. And when it's set to 0, it's applying to both. If I set it to -1, it only applies to the background. If I set it to +1, it only applies to your character. So I can kind of turn it down, turn it even further back, get a nice little vignette here. I know that F3 by default is called sharpen, so let's go ahead and turn that on. Why not have it sharpened? Now I'm going to go to F6, and when I turn that on, you see it's set to fade, which is weird because it's making this really pop. Well, it's because right now it's set to negative. So a negative fade is going to do the opposite of fade. It's going to make things really pop. I tend to think that the default is a little too much. I'm going to go to -20 or so. But you can see now this is a much cleaner, more, I think it's more appealing. And this is what I want. So I'm going to come up here to Document, Export, and we're going to export Stitch Render, right? Save. There it is. And we're okay. So hopefully this was useful. Hopefully you kind of got some ideas as to how to create a character from scratch and do a couple of things that we haven't done before.